Welcome to Hickory Street Podcast. I'm Michael Zamora, and we are here with Diya. From
hi.
Mutha Falcon.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you again.
I know, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has been a minute.
Yeah.
When was that? Was that someday last week that I saw you riding your bike?
Yeah, it was like the week before last. I was like...
It was 2 weeks ago.
I was like, wait, Diya, you're in the street. You can't just stop and talk to people. Because that's what I was going to do, because I usually do that. Yeah.
Well, good to see you again. The last time you were on the podcast was like about a year ago, whenever Texas tried to open up.
Oh, yeah.
The first time or whatever. Like after 6 months or something, right?
It was like wasn't it like June or something, I think?
I can't remember. It was very early on, though. So how's the music thing been? What have you guys been up to recently?
Been really, it's been better than ever. Yeah.
Good. Cool.
For those that don't know, we did put out a song on my birthday a couple weeks ago called "End of Oblivion," and I put so much work into it on my end, and I just was really, when I was getting everything together for it, I was just very much in a fuck it kind of mode. I was like, we're gonna throw this to whoever will listen to it. Let's just send it out wherever and get all this stuff done. And it's been insane that it actually paid off, because I kind of. Obviously, I was hoping for it too, but I didn't expect for it to be where it's at now. I really didn't.
Yeah.
Not this fast, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So it was released on your birthday. What day was that?
May 19th.
May 19th?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I didn't know that you put out music. I've been so, disconnected from the scene because of all of this. Mm-hmm. So I haven't even really kept up with anybody's releases and such. I'll have to check it out because I haven't listened to it yet.
It's really good. It came out really good.
How long did it take you to record it?
Okay, so this story's actually really crazy. Basically, we initially recorded it when in the studio and stuff, January 2020. Okay. It was either January 2020 or December 2019 at the end of that. Mm-hmm. And then, we were getting everything ready to do the music video. And then the week we were supposed to do the music video, we went into lockdown. And then
you know what? I think you talked about that. Okay, so that was the song.
That's the song, yeah. And so we stuck a pin in it all the way until, we started working back on it. And was it December? I think it was it was January. It was right at the end of January. We had kind of picked back up, finishing it, getting it mixed and mastered, and then doing the video and all that. Mm-hmm. And we also had to do the photos and all that. And it was so much stuff. But it's crazy how it all worked out, because we had, back in 2019, I went to this music conference in LA, and I went to this class that they had there about releasing music, how to do a proper rollout for your song, and I learned how they do it on major labels, and so that's what we did with this.
You modeled what they do?
Oh yeah, because it's it works if you if you know what to do, and it worked for us, so it was crazy. Yeah. It's literally, this morning it was at 8,800 and something, and that was this morning, so I'm pretty sure
listens,
it'll be
streams,
streams on Spotify.
Cool.
The music video is almost at 500, which that's still good too. It's better than any other video we have on there. And yeah, I didn't expect for it to do all that, because it was doing 1,000 a day up until a couple days ago. Then it slowed down. Yeah, no, but it was steady. 1K, 2K, 3K, 4K. It was just a lot, dude. I didn't know it would do all that fast. I wasn't prepared for that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So how, what was the strategy for releasing it then? What exactly did you do?
The main thing that I think was really good that we did was we gave us more than enough time. We started picking up back on, getting it mixed and mastered and all that in January. So we had what we Okay, so we had already had 3 months of getting everything lined up, and then once it came time to do the promotion, the actual promoting, we had been running we did test ads on Facebook and Instagram to kind of target our audience better, to figure out what it is, because you'd be surprised. I thought, so literally this whole entire time, we've been a band for 4 years, I was always under the assumption it was millennial men were our main target, because they were our main follower groups on both, on Instagram and Facebook. But we ran these test ads, come to find out the Gen Zs, they were actually sharing our stuff more than the millennial people. It's a trip. And I was like, huh? But then it makes sense, because I'm our songs are a little, they can be a little angsty sometimes and stuff, and it's but I mean, that it worked for us. Yeah. So and then even then we were still shooting it out to whoever, but targeting our audience better really helped. And that was something that they taught in that thing, because it's you get a better idea of who responds to what you're doing better, because it's people of most ages, even some older people, way older people here and there, the middle-aged people, if they're a cool middle-aged person, sometimes they'll rock with us, sometimes not, but but it's it's really interesting, because the younger, people 24 and stuff, and younger than that, they were really showing us some love. They were actually sharing our stuff, and they're all this stuff was crazy. And so it was a lot. I'm really glad it all worked out. It was just it was a lot. That was a lot. It's still
cool.
going.
That's really cool. And that's something that I tried to pay attention to at one point, was just in my own musical endeavors, trying to figure out who it was that was listening to us consistently, and who it was that were following us consistently. And the problem that I came across, and maybe this is just because of the genre I'm in, but the main demographic of our listeners is mid-20s and older. So we don't have a whole lot of people that engage with our posts, but listen to us. It's mainly because our demographic of followers aren't avid social media users. Actually,
yeah. So yeah, I think that's what it is. So whenever I was doing everything, getting the marketing and all that stuff ready, I had watched videos on algorithms for each social media site, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of them and stuff. And that does play a part of it, because the thing is, whenever we were running our ads, I was just kind of well, I don't know how a particular group is going to respond, because with the Gen Zs and stuff, I had originally thought, I was okay, well, they don't use Facebook, they use Twitter. That's a thing. And even people our age, there are more of us out there who use Twitter than Facebook, but it's how would you know unless you looked it up? I never thought about that until I was getting things together for that, but that plays a part in it too. It's a trip. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And I've actually figured out from looking at our listens and such too, that a lot of the people that discover us don't discover us through social media. They discover us purely from Spotify.
That's awesome.
Purely from, so it really so targeting your audience is very key. And once you realize how people are discovering you, that sort of is it kind of shows you the pathway to success.
Definitely.
Because like you were saying, Gen Z was the primary demographic that was tuning in and engaging in your stuff on social media. And it kind of makes sense, because it seems like the younger generations use social media more frequently anyway. Definitely. So I think what's probably going to happen over the course of time is that the younger generations are going to be the ones primarily sucking up the content on all social media platforms. So if you're going to be marketing anything to that generation, social media is going to be the way to do it. But so yeah, that's cool. So your method for this release was it a trial and error step-by-step process before you decide to release it? Or?
Yeah, so some of the stuff we had already tried whenever we did Ego Death. Because that Ego Death, so our release we did in 2020, that was like right after we went to that convention. And so like we just didn't give ourselves as much time. We didn't have as much time because the song, we went to that convention, it was like in November. The song came out at the beginning of February. So we didn't have the time to do exactly everything we did with this release. But most of it was from what we tried with that. And I mean, really the only way you learn is trial and error. Because there is even stuff with this release where I'm like, okay, next time, you know, now I know we don't really have to like put as much into this one thing or whatever, you know. So it was like half trial and error, but some of it we'd already done and it worked out. So
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So are you familiar with the 10% rule?
Oh, where it's like if you put 10% into something, and but if you put like 1,000,000% into something, you're gonna get 1,000,000% back.
No. There's a it comes down to like basic economics of things, but like what's been proven is that if you have 1,000 hardcore followers or customers of your product, you'll be able to generate enough revenue to sort of live off of it for the rest of your life. So like what that comes down to is like 10% of the people that hear you are going to need to become your fans in order to make your career sustainable. So if you can get at least 10% of everyone that hears you to engage and become a fan, then you'll eventually be able to maintain a long-term career.
Ooh, that makes sense too. Yeah.
So believe it. So that's something that a lot of people don't, I think, take into consideration. That like in anything, even if it's like a new business, like most people that engage with your business or your content that you create are not going to become fans, and that's actually okay because you're just looking to cultivate that 10%, and everyone else is sort of like irrelevant because those are the people that might listen to your music, but they're not going to buy anything. So it's like the 1,000 people that will actually buy anything that you put out is going to be like your rock solid base. So
I believe that. Yeah, that makes sense too, because it's really, and it's like, you know, like you have people that are just, you know, casual listeners. And I mean, even like with this release, since it's done better than anything we've ever put out. You know, there are some people who I'm sure just, you know, they'll listen to it here and there, but it's like the hardcore fans. Like it's developing like that, like really like the fans who do really, really like y'all. Cause I mean, they will, like, that's the thing. Like I make such an emphasis on like our fans and stuff, and just like how I like love our fans and everything, because at the end of the day, they are really the ones that they're out there. They're driving from wherever to come and see you. Like we had, like we play out in Dublin, Texas a lot, like over by Stephenville. And I think it was whenever we put out the first album, the whole, like a big group of them came all the way from here to there to see us, you know? And it's the stuff like that. We have some other fans where they used to live in Grand Prairie, and they would drive way the fuck from Grand Prairie all the way to Denton just to see us, and just wherever we'd be at, you know? And it's awesome. And, you know, it's good because it's like, you know, it's that connection. And, but yeah, it kind of falls into that too, because it's like that 10%, those are the people who like really, really fuck with you and stuff. And it's like, you know, I feel like a way to help kind of build that is just, you know, kind of, you know, do what you can for the fans and show them appreciation. Yeah. Whatever you can.
Yeah. So Ego Death was your sort of trial release. So does that mean now that you've successfully like done a single this way, that whenever you release an album, you're going to kind of market the same way.
Actually, yeah. Well, so check this out. So I don't know if I told you. I'm probably sure I did, but we had started re-recording our first album last year, and then the Rona held it off, and so we're about to get back into re-recording it. And so with this album, it'll be not all of the old songs. There's one we're not going to do, but it'll be most of the songs from the first album, and then like a few new songs. And the way we're going to release it, we're going to release it kind of an EP format. So we'll do 4 at a time. It'll be one new one, 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, at a time. I think it's probably either 3 to 4 songs per EP. But it'll be like 1 new one and like 2 old ones, or 1 new one and 3 old ones. And then we'll just, because Spotify has it to where you can combine, like if you do release something like that, you can put it all into one cohesive thing at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go about it that way because it's smarter because it'll keep our name out there for longer, and it's going to be constantly giving the fans something. Because at the end of the day, we're re-recording the first album because, I mean, I feel like those songs deserve better, you know? And I know I'm a better singer since then. I had only been singing for like I guess technically it came out in 2019, so like a year and a half. It didn't have good vocal support, you know. I didn't know what I knew about technique and all that. And it's just, we're a more cohesive band as well, and so it's like I want us to do those songs justice. And plus it's just like, you know, I want to give people something solid to listen to if they've never heard us, because that's yeah. And anyway, but that's how we're gonna go about it. And we're gonna kind of do so I'm going to that conference again this year. If they end up having it in person, we're not entirely sure, but we're planning on going anyway.
Like as a band?
Oh, so it was me and Landon, my guitarist, and then our producer friend Joe. He usually does our producing. He didn't do our producing on Into Oblivion, but he did with Ego Death and all that. And it was him and his friend Evan that went last year. But yeah, so squad trip. And like, but this year, if we go again this year, I'm going to definitely make that my main focus with how to successfully do something kind of like that, like an EP. Because I know a lot of, if not most of the stuff that I did with this song should work whenever I'm putting out the EP, but there's always little details. There's always more stuff you can do, and like you find out that kind of make it easier. Yeah,
just like minor things that you can use to adjust your own. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Like I was talking about algorithms earlier, and like I have a theory. Like I feel like the algorithm was helping push the song a lot better too in Spotify and stuff, just because we had just a steady, kind of just the way we did things, we ended up getting like a steady amount of people checking it out. Because like we did ads, but we had done ads for like 2 months, you know, so you had people waiting on it, just building up that anticipation and stuff. And yeah, it's all sorts of little stuff. Like I did a TikTok series leading up to this release, and it was called My Super Sweet Single Release, and I just kind of showed some of the stuff I was doing to get ready for the release and stuff. And it's like that helps keep your, like, not only is your name, obviously it's more recognizable to people because they're seeing it, but it's also more recognizable to the internet itself, you know, and it's helping push it along further, because you have to think, whenever things get trending, why do things start trending? Because people are talking about it, and it's like the more people talk about it, the more people look into what they're talking about and stuff, and just the more it's that thing, you know. And so really learning about the algorithms and shit really helped too, like on top of all the other stuff that was also very helpful. So that was cool. That is something that I had to kind of learn the hard way with my own endeavor, because at one point I was using social media and pumping money into it to try and market and advertise it, figure out who my audience was. And then once I realized that the majority of people that actually listen to our music are not engaging in our social media posts and are of an older demographic that like don't even discover us through social media, I had to just step away from it and realize, like, okay, this isn't working, because the people that enjoy my music aren't people that use social media. So that's interesting. Yeah.
So I just had to sort of check out of the whole social media game, because I realized it wasn't really serving our music.
That's interesting. That's crazy. I love that. That's like kind of like the opposite with us, because with us it's like social media, especially Instagram, has like just really, really, really helped us. That is interesting, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. Like, even up to, I guess, like, when was it? Like a year and a half ago, I was trying all these different, like, I was looking up stuff, like, what was the proper hashtags to use and such like that, just to get people to, you know, tune in and engage and stuff. And I hit a wall where I just realized, like, nothing was working, and I couldn't figure out why. And so, like, with the Facebook ads and the Instagram ads that I had been doing prior to that, and like looking at the data and then comparing it to like what was happening on Spotify and who was actually listening, and the demographic that was engaging on social media, and then the demographic that was actually listening, it was like this huge disconnect. And it's like a barrier that our band just was not able to really like
break through.
It's just like we could not break through on social media because the people that enjoy our music and were going to listen to it weren't the people that were on social media very much. Yeah. And so so like I really just kind of comes down to the band style of music, and like the image plays a lot into it too.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, and maybe it has a lot to do with the fact that we're a punk band. Because, like,
you know
what I mean? Like, the punk, like, there's like a natural, like, against the grain, like, listenership in that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, like, you're talking to Aiden, because Aiden's, heavily in the metal scene, and, he mentions that, like, I find some bands online, some metal bands online sometimes, but, like, the primary way that I find bands is really just, like, being plugged into the scene. And it makes sense because the metal scene is not a scene that really engages much on social media. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I can probably, like, name, 6 bands at least that are like well-known metal bands that actually have a consistent following online, but there's so many awesome metal bands that don't have any social media pages at all. Yeah, wow. So
wow. Yeah. Well, and see, like with us, I feel like one of our strengths that I've just been kind of embracing with like putting out the song and everything is just like we're not necessarily like we're a punk band, like the punk energy and the punk attitude's there, but our sound itself is so many other things too. Like it's really, you can't really describe it. So I've just been describing it as punk fusion because I can't find a better word for it. But it's the fact that it is punk, but then it's also, there's hip hop elements, and then you have funk elements, and then you have like, it's so much different things. And so what's good for us is it's like that attracts all sorts of different people, because even whenever we back before Miss Rona, we could be on any kind of, like, most lineups we'd fit in on, we could be on a punk lineup, but then we've also done shows where we're the only band and it's a bunch of rappers. We've also, we've had every kind of combination, and it works because there's kind of a kind of overlap in a way with our audience. And so social media does work really good for us. But like, that's a trip. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Oh my God. Are you familiar? I'm sure you are, but are you familiar with the band Fiddler?
Why do they sound familiar? Are they?
So they were like a very big, popular band from California, like in the underground scene. Like they've been around for quite a while. And there's a lot of people that I've met that know who they are, that have gone to their shows, that, you know, love them. Like, they hear their name in a crowd and they're like, oh, Fiddler, I love that band, you know.
Nice.
But you go onto their, like, Facebook page and they have something like crazy, like 3,000 or like 6,000 followers on Facebook. But like, you know that they're an established band, but it's just like their listenership isn't the listenership that engages very much on social media or Facebook in general. I don't remember exactly what the number of likes they had on their page was, but I remember it being like shockingly low. And like the last post that they had on there was from like 2014 or like 2015.
Yeah, it's probably part of why it's so low. But they're a big band, you know. That's a trip.
And then like one of my favorite bands, Parquet Courts.
Okay.
They don't have any social media.
Oh, at all?
No, they've got an Instagram page that has nothing on it, and I think it might be deleted now. I think they just deleted it. Yeah, they don't have any Facebook pages or anything, and you know, they've toured outside of the U.S. Like they're
that's awesome.
They're a very well established underground band, and yeah, so it's you know, it just kind of depends, and I think every band can do it their own way. And honestly, I feel like as a band, it might actually be even better to operate away from the online world, just because you can kind of get caught up in like making yourself mad over like, oh, well, this worked, but this isn't working anymore. Like, what do I need to do different? And then you're constantly like stressed out about, you know, that aspect, because that's where your fan base is and everything. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that you know, the internet has made it very accessible for people to kind of gain.
Oh, definitely.
You know, they're following through those channels, and that's a really good thing. But you know, it doesn't work for everyone. And it really kind of depends on, you know, who your listeners are. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I like to think of it as it's kind of like you do both at the same time, and it's like it's harder. You know, it's a lot of work, like trying to keep a more physical presence per se, but it's also, I've just come to the point where it's like with this release, you know, like with the one we just put out, really what I like about the internet is, I hate how like toxic social media can be, especially Twitter. Like, I'm really glad we're not really popping on Twitter. We don't have a lot of followers on Twitter. People get mean on Twitter, but what's amazing about the internet is you reach so many more people. Like with so like for me personally, like I'm from Houston originally. I have hella friends and family, like all my family and stuff's back there. Like I lived there until I was 19, born and raised. If it wasn't for everything I was doing with social media and just having the internet in general, they'd never hear us. We're way up here, like unless we toured down there, but then how would they even know to come see us? You know? And it's just one of those things. It's a necessary evil, because it can, but that's for our band, you know, that's what works good for our band. Because the thing is too, it's also like the fact that I feel like there's just drawbacks, because what is really good about the internet is it's like, it's way easier for just anybody to blow up if you know what you're doing. And also if you're just like, if you have some wild shit happen, like, you know, like with TikTok, for example, it's very cringy. There's some very cringy stuff on there, but it's been doing wonders for bands, because you get a song that gets popular on there. Yeah. It spreads real fast. And it's the way that the algorithm's set up too. It suggests, it's weird. I'm not even going to get into it, but it's
I get what you're saying.
It's one of those things. It's good to do both, but you know, with the Rona, it makes it hard. It made it hard to do that, because you know you
everybody was
shows,
doing it, you know? and there were no shows, so there was no way as an artist to like set yourself apart in any way. Yeah, you had to kind of get creative with live streams. But you know, I've discovered some bands through Instagram in particular, but it's not It was never anything that was suggested to me.
Okay. You just saw them on the Explore tab?
It was usually just like me going down hashtag rabbit holes and like seeing who was posting stuff. But most of the bands that I've discovered through Spotify.
Nice.
And it's been things that Spotify have suggested me, and or like YouTube, I'll get like it'll just like play the next video, like music video or something.
Yeah.
And I'll discover a band that way. Like I discovered this band called 8 Rounds Rapid.
I like that name.
Yeah,
that's a cool name.
They're a British like blues band, basically. But they had this one music video that they did for, like, playthrough video that they did for KEXP, and
oh wow,
it didn't have a whole lot of views. I want to say it was like maybe 20,000 or something at the time I saw it, like 2 or 3 years ago now. But I started listening to them, and then just recently I was just like thinking about the band. I was like, oh, that band, I'm gonna go check them out.
Nice.
And so I went on their Spotify account, and they only have like 300 monthly listeners. So
those are so weird though. The monthly listener counts are so like, I don't know. I have some theories because those just seem off. Like, you know, like I feel like everybody's should be more, you know, but whatever. I'm not going to get into a Spotify conspiracy theory. But yeah. Well, and that's what I like about Spotify. Like, I really wish they'd pay us more, because 0.005 cents or something, it's something like that. Or I think it's like 0.05 cents a stream. Come on now. When you have people paying, it's like 10 month, you know, I think we all deserve to get paid more. What I like about Spotify is it's the ability for other people to discover your music through it. Because it's like, if you do get playlisted, there you go. Like, you know, you're going to get a whole bunch of streams and stuff. And even if it's not a Spotify editorial playlist, if anyone with a larger playlist adds you to it, it's crazy because you get people from anywhere on there. It's really, really cool. I like that about that. Yeah.
I will say something about the playlist thing. There's a lot of like people out there that are charging people to put them on curated playlists and such, and man, like, I'm sure it works to some degree, but it just seems like a really negative thing to do as a band, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you know, from what so while I was doing all my research on everything, I was doing researches into like exactly like how you would even get on an editorial playlist. They are mad stingy with those. Apparently, more often than not, the artists that do get added to those editorial playlists are like, you have to have a label. Really, it's really stupid. And then like while I think it was the same video, this one girl, she was talking about the playlist. She was talking about like what you're talking about with like the paying for them. And usually what happens is, more often than not, these playlists that you're paying to be put on have bot listeners, so you're not actually getting real listens. And Spotify, if Spotify picks up that you have bots and stuff, it suppresses your music and their algorithm like even more. And so that's I've heard people think that's a good idea, but it's like, don't do it. However, it is really hard to get on a playlist. We lucked out last summer because I commented. So there's this one band I follow, this UK band called Hands Off Gretel. The singer, it was during the Black Lives Matter stuff, she was like, oh, drop your favorite black like artist, whatever. And I was like, hey, we're not, you know, hey, I know we're a relatively newish band, you know, we don't have a lot of stuff, but yeah, we're really fun, whatever. Someone put us on this black alternative artist playlist, and like, dude, we got people from everywhere. Like, that was really when we had the most listeners from different countries and stuff. Like, we had people from India, listening to us in Argentina and like Botswana. Like it was crazy, dude. And like literally every country in Europe, it was gnarly. And so that kind of thing is cool with the playlist. I just wish it was easier to make that shit happen because I really lucked out with that.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna say, there were some people that discovered us in South America.
Nice.
Like I don't know how that happened, awesome. But like we've had listens from Brazil. We had a few listens in Italy. But,
same.
Very small stuff. I don't know how these people like discovered it.
It's so cool though.
I think that the Spotify algorithm works better. But going back to what you said about the pay thing, I think the issue is that nobody knows how much a stream is really worth right now because there is so much music out there. And so I think we talked about this last time we had a podcast together, but my theory is that as more and more music gets downloaded onto streaming platforms, we're going to come across an issue of like there just being more supply than there is a demand for music. And so I think that what's going to happen now after, thinking about it for the past year is that I think artists might at some point be able to negotiate how much their music is actually worth with Spotify after they start getting traction, if that makes sense. So
I hope so.
It might be something that is negotiable, but right now it's sort of like the Wild West of the music industry right now because it is so easy to just upload stuff. And eventually, listening, consuming music through like physical mediums or even on the radio is going to be almost obsolete. I don't think it's ever going to go completely away, but it's going to become like almost obsolete to the point where all the attention is going to be purely on streaming platforms. And I think once that happens, there'll be enough. There'll be more of a stable demand for it because you have to think about it this way. Like the generation that the generations that didn't grow up with streaming as an option to listen to music primarily don't stream music. So there's a lot of like people in the older generations that do, but most of them don't. Most of them aren't going to spend the time to like figure out how to put a Spotify account together. So like once that generation dies off and we have the Gen Z's coming in and then the generations behind them that come in, there'll be that much more of a listener population digesting it purely through those channels, and so we'll see.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way. That's true. I mean, it's look at TV. Like who really? Right. I don't have cable or anything. I just do
our generation is like the first generation to really reject TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the millennial generation is the first generation to like actively stop watching TV, and that's really messed up the TV industry because they don't really know how to compete anymore, which is why things like Netflix and Hulu are becoming are having so many shows and movies going directly to those platforms because it's making more sense considering that their consistent customer basis is grown. So I think that something similar is going to start happening with music, and I think it's already been happening. It's just going to get more and more normal for generations to grow up never buying a CD or never listening to the radio. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's one of the, it's like with podcasts too, like think about how podcasts and all the different ways you can listen to podcasts has changed, the way radio is digested, like talk shows on radio stations. Like
that's true.
And people don't really tune into radio stations for the talk shows anymore because they have so many different options for podcasts. And
yeah, dude. There's every kind of podcast.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, and even if you don't like have any sort of like success with podcasting or really even music, like through releasing it online or whatever, even if you don't have any like success, it's there, and so at any point there's the potential for it to be successful, which is something sort of unheard of too, because in previous generations, like bands that were together that recorded and just made a few like physical copies of their release and then didn't really do anything past that and didn't put their music up online, those bands are just forgotten about forever. You know what I mean?
It's true.
And now it's there and can sort of stand the test of time. So like
exactly.
And same thing with like podcast. Like think about how many failed radio show hosts that there were.
Oh yeah, a bunch.
You know what I mean?
Bunch,
and it's like nobody can go back and listen to any of their stuff because it was radio. It was there for that time, and then it was gone.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I was literally talking about the same thing to my coworker Kevin, because I was telling him, I was like, okay, so my dad's a musician. Like, he was doing music in, like, the 80s-ish, all that. I mean, he still does music, but that was really whenever he had his group together and all that. And, back then, you have to think, like, even... So, okay, for one thing, if you wanted people to hear your stuff, they had to, like, either have, like, a cassette or whatever, 8-track, or it had to be on the radio. And you had to know somebody to get it on the radio. On top of that, if you really, really wanted to get your stuff out there, you did have to have a manager. Now, it's you. It's whoever is designated in your band has to do all that. But it's great because it's like you have all that in your hands, And it's like it's just more accessible because like now you're able to have people like in South America and shit listening to your song, and it's like back then. There's no way. Yeah, and so it's great. It's so crazy. But it's crazy to think that like all that happened pretty fast. Like, because even if you throw back to like LimeWire and Napster and all that kind of stuff, it's been a constant.
Yeah, it was evolution. Really our generation was the first ones exposed to it, and like nobody knows how to use it or like how to make a living off of it, really, and. So far, I mean, for bands, it seems like the primary source of revenue comes from ticket sales and merch sales, and
absolutely,
that's that's kind of an issue as far as like creating a career because that means that your only like ways of like sources of income are either to like play live to death. Or just get lucky and have tons of people willing to buy your stuff. Because, I mean, I think about all the bands I listen to, and I can probably only name like a handful of bands I've actually bought their CD. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or, bothered to buy any sort of merch from them.
Yeah.
And, that's sort of like a testament to the state of the music scene right now, just everywhere in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't think a career in music is impossible, but sustainable.
It's not,
Like, I don't see how we're ever going to go back to a time where we have, you know, these sort of like these successful independent artists that last, you know, decades. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like one of my favorite artists, and for really good reason, because he broke through so many different barriers, is Chance the Rapper.
Oh yeah.
Like the fact that he was nominated, he was the first artist nominated for a Grammy that was completely independent and got his following purely from SoundCloud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
But I think about that guy and like his, you know, career from start to finish and, you know, ongoing now, and, you know, it's going to be like, okay, well, what's going to happen in 10 years for that guy? Because I guarantee you his listeners aren't going to go out of their way to go and buy his merch 10 years from now.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? And his music's going to be virtually free on platforms. So, you know, I feel like maybe the only, and I don't know if he's done this or not, but once you get that amount of attention, I think that the only sustainable way is to like invest your money into some other tangible thing. Yeah.
You know Well, that's what they all do. Because like with Chance the Rapper in particular, I watched a whole, you know how YouTube has those little like 10-minute documentaries about stuff. I watched one about him. And something he and his manager did was, you know, he has those hats and stuff.
With the 3 on it.
Yeah. So those were actually just like a custom order that they did. And then since they blew up, like I think he actually makes money from Nike through those hats and stuff. But even like, you know, you look at people like Rihanna. Rihanna has so much fucking money. She's so rich, and it's not from her music. It's from her lingerie line, her Savage Fenty line. It's from her Fenty Beauty, her makeup line. She made way more money doing that than she ever did doing music, because, you know, whenever you're a musician, let's say you do get signed, well, depending on what kind of contract that is, you have the label taking X amount of that money. And it's like with the labels already, it's interesting because it's like, labels, you know, if you look at traditional record deals, you know, they give you an advance of whatever X amount of money, and then they're like, you know, go make this album, whatever. Well, like record deals now, you got those 360 deals. It's because these major labels ain't making what they used to because of the streaming thing, you know? And so you have some of these labels where they take, like before, you know, they wouldn't really be taking your merch money and shit. But now, no, some of them, they take a little bit of your merch. They take a little bit of your tickets. They take a little bit of your, literally anything else. You have some labels where they'll take some of your appearance money and stuff. And it didn't used to be like that before, but it's because of,
the only way they can survive is to, you know, suck the blood of the artist that they have.
And so you gotta be, if you're gonna do, if you are really trying to, like, so I already know, look, like I'm in a 5-piece band. I'm not going to be able to make, that's probably not going to happen for a very, very, very long time. And even then, it's like, you know, something else that we have to worry about now that, like, musicians back in, like, the 80s and stuff didn't have to worry about. You essentially have to be in it. Like, if you really want to try to make money doing music and stuff, you also essentially have to be an influencer at the same time. Get brand deals. What's good about, that's what I will also say is good about the internet, is it's like, you are able to be, you know, you don't have to be the tippiest top band of whatever. If you have enough followers and stuff, people want you to be like, hey, do this, you know, do this commercial, do whatever, take pictures wearing something that we send you, and we'll pay you X amount. And it's crazy because it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, I'm glad we have the internet because of that, but it's a trip to see how streaming has affected the music industry and how it's probably good, you know, there's no telling now, you know, but it's been a trip to just see how all this is shifting everything already.
Yeah, and a lot of artists, like myself included, have somewhat of an ethical issue with like, you know, sort of, I don't know, becoming your own, like, you're becoming a sales rep essentially for all of your products. You know what I mean? Like, there was something I thought about whenever I started this podcast, even, and I was like, you know what? Should I make a Patreon? And then I was thinking to myself, you know what? It doesn't make any sense for me to do so, because I want people to enjoy listening to the content without having me plug in all of these links and stopping the show, and you know what I mean. And like, if I ever get to a point where it makes sense for me to start doing something like that, then I'm open to it. But it just you know, it's not something that I would even particularly like doing a whole lot of. Even
it's more work.
Yeah,
because then you have to fulfill whatever you're telling the people you'll fulfill within X amount of time, you know.
Yeah, and then on some level, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever product you're advertising, and like whatever their guidelines are for, you know, your presentation of it, and it just seems like too much. And so, yeah, and then we have an issue with like censorship and like like things that are, you know, like being taken down from certain podcast platforms, and so like something that
with music too, they're doing that with like Tory Lanez, that rapper. He's the rapper who shot Megan Thee Stallion. They took all his shit off of, or I think they took one of his albums off of Spotify because of all that. Really? Yeah, it's like
he shot someone.
Yeah, he shot this one really famous rapper. He's somewhat. I mean, he's famous, but look, I'm not checking for Tory Lanez. I don't think he's, but whatever. But yeah, no, there was this whole incident like last summer where, he shot Meg Thee Stallion, who she just had like the best year for music ever last year. Like, she had just won a Grammy and everything. But it would cause this whole thing, and they took his music off of there. They've also taken... It's been a reoccurring thing lately, and it's just kind of like how they're doing the podcast and stuff too. It's getting to the point where it's like, oh, well, I don't like what you're talking about. Yoink. Just like how YouTube is doing that too with the YouTubers and shit. You couldn't say, it was weird, you couldn't directly mention COVID or else they demonetize your video.
Yeah, because they were worried about misinformation and such, and it's difficult because we're living in a society with outrage culture as being the culture. And
I can see that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever heard about the Intolerance Paradox or the Tolerance Paradox.
No, what is that?
So, okay, there was a social scientist in like 1880s who put out a publication. I can't remember the guy's name now, but I discovered it like 2 years ago, or like a year ago, something like that. But anyways, this guy put out a study. Or it was a study, it was a theory that has sort of become like common knowledge nowadays in like the intellectual study of society world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the tolerance paradox is that in order for a society to stay civil, the society has to be intolerant of the intolerant. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So that's the paradox, is that like in order for a society to remain peaceful, the intolerant section of society has to be sort of outcasted by the rest of society, and so society as a whole has to be intolerant of those intolerant individuals in order for peace to be maintained. And like we're in this weird social climate now where the intolerant of our society are being tolerated. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's sort of causing a lot of like social strife because nobody can agree on anything because our sense of morality has been so diluted by what we're told we should be we should believe by like social, just like big media companies and like just marketing campaigns in general, so we're living in a weird, it's just a weird time right
it's
now.
Weird, dude. And it was like, look, things were already starting to get weird in 2012, and then 2016 just really sped it up, and then 2020 knocked that shit out the park, and then we're still dealing with 2020 now, and it's just it's really, really weird because like, look, I don't know, I didn't expect the apocalypse to be so lonely. Like, it's just weird, dude. And it's the stuff like that, And
it really, whenever you like trace back where this weirdness came from, there's two major events.
9/11.
Well, actually 3 major events. So 9/11, 9/11, and then the stock market crash of 2008, and then Edward Snowden.
Oh,
the Edward Snowden scandal.
Oh, yeah, because he had the NSA thing, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Which was related to 9/11 in a lot of ways because it was related to the Patriot
Act, right? Okay.
So it's like those 3 things in American history has not only affected our nation, obviously it's affected our nation the most, but it's affected the world because once it was exposed that America had all of these, spying tactics, other governments got weary, and now certain governments are just like completely open about it. Like we talk about, I mean, you can look at some of the issues that's going on in China right now.
Oh yeah, them in particular
and
too.
They're just
like the pros.
Yeah, they're just blatant about it, and so we're just sort of we're headed for a crash course collision somewhere. You know what I mean? Like something is catastrophic is going to happen.
Yeah, well, and then it's just like, I don't know, it feels like it's like, so it's like all of that, and it's because things are like that, you get this like acute paranoia, like everybody's paranoid about shit because you don't really know what to trust sometimes, like you can try your best, but then there's always just it's little shit too. It's like whenever people, the internet will just kill people sometimes, and they'll be like, oh, RIP so and so, and they're not even fucking dead. It's just stuff like that, and then on top of everything just being so up here, then you have people where just everybody's so like intense now, and they're just mean and shit like that. I'm in this is still on topic, but there's this pop group I'm in on Facebook, and it's like main pop girls posting, and it'll be people post like different pop stars in it. And somebody had asked about this one girl. They were like, what about so and so? And then somebody was like, well, she's not a main pop girl, sweaty. Shit like that. And you got people getting mad and shit at each other in the group. You got people sending people death threats and stuff. Like, it is it's crazy out there. And I'm like, I think everyone needs to calm down. Like, for real. Like, I know, look, we all had a rough year last year, but good God. And it was already getting bad. Like, whenever, like, the whole, and then it just got worse. And then the election happened, and it got even worse. And then things still haven't chilled out since then. And it's it's a lot.
I remember thinking, like, and listening to some of my friends and such, and it's just, it's kind of sad because, like, I was hearing some of my friends like saying like, okay, well now that COVID's going to be releasing, things are going to get better, and
no,
it's like not really, man. Like this was one part of why things were bad, but this wasn't the reason, and I think the people that in our society that have been paying attention to what's been happening with the world and in our country knows that that's not, that COVID wasn't the issue, that it was several other things.
Yeah, exactly. It just, it really, all the shit we already had, COVID just completely amplified it, because that's the thing. I remember hearing before COVID actually even happened that they were saying how the what is it called, there's this curve thing that they look at to determine if a recession's gonna happen, and the shit had already flipped or whatever, and so a recession was already on the way, and then COVID was like, hi sisters, and just like but that's the thing, it's like that's one of those things I've always heard people say too, where they're just like, oh, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. You haven't been paying attention. It's not even, and the thing is too, you have to think, what the fuck is this shit gonna be like in 5 more years? Because it's just, everything kind of builds upon what's happened before. Like, look at where we are now versus the early 2000s, and it's weird, because it's very uncertain.
I remember thinking and like paying attention to the stock market the summer before COVID hit. So it would have been like 8 months before COVID hit or something. And in July, the Dow Jones, it was like July of 2019, the Dow Jones had its worst day since the 2008 recession, and it tanked 800 points in one day. And
damn.
And the only way I knew that is because I was about to invest in the stock market. And then I saw that happen and realized like, okay, we're in a different like economic climate than I thought we were. And then I kind of went down a rabbit hole and like discovered so many different reasons why. And so I think that one of the main issues in our country is that living like standards of living hasn't increased for the population in at least, I think it's something like 15 or 20 years now. My mom was actually talking to me. My mom has a degree in criminal justice, and in 1999 she got a job working for she got a job somewhere making like $14 an hour. And before the pandemic hit, she was working for $15 an hour, and
that's it.
Yeah,
after being there for that long,
and after having a degree, and and so like that's an issue too in our society. Like I'm almost 30 now, and in like the next 4 years I'll be 30, and so it's like at this point I don't really see myself being able to live the same standard of living that my dad even was able to live. And so it's just a very different economic climate, and I think that's been one thing that has spurred all these other issues. You know what I mean? Because people are angry because they're not able to meet their bills, they're not able to live comfortably. Everybody's in survival mode. So we'll see what happens, but as far as like the economy goes, like it seems like things are gonna only get worse as jobs start to be automated away and such. So
yeah. Well, and like, sorry, I keep hitting this chord.
You're good.
But like what you're saying, like with how like your mom, she has a degree, she like they're still not paying her more. Even like you look at like Fastenal and stuff, like they just like a couple months ago went ahead and just raised the minimum wage for the warehouse because they're trying to compete with these other warehouses that are coming up over here, and it's really, really weird because it's that thing though. It's the, you have plenty of people up there that have degrees, yet they're making just as much as I am. And I didn't finish college. Like I have some of it. But, and it's interesting because it's like, I know more people that have degrees that aren't using them in whatever they majored in versus people who do actually have a career in that career field.
Yeah,
it's a trip.
We're living in an age of economic displacement where we have all these people that are, who are educated, that are well equipped to work, but there's nothing for them to do to raise their standard of living. So one thing that I'm doing like with my career now is learning trades.
That's smart.
I'm trying to learn the job that I have now. I'm going to be learning carpentry skills. I'm going to be learning how to weld. And
nice.
I'm going to be like learning how to look at blueprints and measurements of things and build structures and such. So, but a lot of people have to kind of get creative, like what they're going to do now.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens, but yeah, well, I guess we'll go ahead and cut the podcast off here now because we've reached about an hour, and I don't want to make it longer than an hour.
I feel that.
Yeah, people I feel like wouldn't keep listening. So, well, thanks, Diya.
Thank you for having me.
You can find Mutha Falcon on social media, spelled with a U, right?
Yeah, so it's Mutha Falcon. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Spotify. Oh yeah, so it's Mutha Falcon with a hyphen. But if you're doing our handle, then it's all one word. But it's that on everything. And at muthafalcon.com or Bandcamp and literally anywhere you listen to music. We're there. Yeah.
Whenever I was tagging your page, I didn't realize it was with a U. So
you put the other one?
I couldn't find your page, and I was like, I know she's on here because you've liked stuff. And so but I found it. So check out Mutha Falcon. Thanks for listening, guys.
Have a good night. That was so fun.
Yeah.